Hi, my name is Jonathan Martinez. Today I will be talking about the concept of red face as was discussed in our class and textbook. I will be doing so through a PowerPoint presentation which I screen recorded the visuals and audio. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for listening. And here we go. Singing red face. Singing red face occurs, as defined by our book, when a non native person takes on the racial archetype of a Native American character through song. And because it is an outside voice describing an inside voice of a Native American, it often results in different stereotypes and also racial slurs, mock Indian languages, and inauthentic music are all seen in singing red face. So, to understand red face, we look at the history of America with its fascination with different minority groups and their stereotypes. An example of this is black minstrelsy, which was a form of entertainment where Anglo Americans would wear blackface and portray African Americans in various stereotypes. They were often portrayed as moronic, idiotic, and taking on a comedic tone, really demonstrating the racial antipathy that white America had for African Americans as they displayed very negative stereotypes towards them. And this racial antipathy was not only reserved for African Americans, but also Native Americans. So, a fascination with Native Americans and their stereotypes may be seen in Wild West shows. Uh, these Wild West shows, although used real natives, often portrayed Native Americans as otherworldly and sensationalized, treating them really as sideshow characters rather than an actual people, further contributing to their stereotypes. Later, these would be strengthened with the Western genre of movies that would grow in popularity in the 1930s and so on. In these movies, as presented in the film Real Engine described, uh, Native Americans were antagonists and really were dumbed down to very general qualities so the audience could easily identify them simply as Indian or the bad guys. These dumbed down qualities really stripped them of their tribal identities and really encouraged many different stereotypes, such as the most popular, that of the noble savage. These stereotypes that were performed in these films would carry into other areas of popular culture, such as music, as many would play Indian or wear and pretend to be Native American uh, for the social status it brought. Uh, an example is the cultural misappropriation, where in popular culture people would rather profit off of the stereotypes that were created rather than research and take the time to correct them through accurate depictions of natives. An example of this in music is 1910 Fruit Gum Company album Indian Giver. Not only do they use a racist uh, name for their album, but they also are clothed in very stereotypical Indian clothes, really propagating the Hollywood Indian stereotype uh, and also cultural appropriation as they are dressed in red face. And although not as really hateful as the cultural misappropriations was idealized sympathy, um, this quality is in many songs featuring red face. And although it takes a sympathetic tone towards Native Americans, it may also be very damaging as it is still from an outside voice, which also may cause stereotypes to propagate as they may not have accurate information about that, who which they are portraying. And as mentioned before, the acts of stereotypes might not be because of lack of information, but because of misinformation. And this is known as cultural confusion. Um, for example, uh, they may not intend to be racist in their portrayals of Native Americans, but they happen to be because the information they're getting is only from Hollywood movies and popular culture, which has inaccurate information. And one example of cultural confusion that I will take the time to look into is Tim McGraw's Indian Outlaw. In this song, despite claiming Native American heritage, it is still considered Redface, as Tim McGraw describes himself as a Native American, but he does so in a very stereotypical way. And in doing so, let's take a look at some of the lyrics. So these lyrics here are all filled with Native American stereotypes. Just reading them, you can find me in my wigwam, I'll be beating on my tom-tom. Pull out the pipe and smoke you some, hay and pass it around. These are very common Indian tropes. They really don't refer to a specific tribal identity and are very much a blanket term and often pieces seen in Hollywood movies. Further looking at the lyrics, I remember the medicine man. He caught running water in my hands, drug me around by my headband, said I wasn't her kind. And this also includes Hollywood stereotypes. And something that is also important to note is the line, drug me around by my headband. Um, from the movie Real Engine, we realize that headbands actually aren't even clothing that Native Americans wore at all, any tribe. And were actually something created for Hollywood to help keep wigs on. So the mention of that really tells you the source of his information and the source of its inaccuracies. So following that, he says, I can kill a deer or buffalo with just my arrow and my hickory bow. From 100 yards, don't you know, I do it all the time. And this really encourages the stereotype of the native savage, as it mentions killing and skilled in weaponry, and also that all Native Americans happen to be incredibly skilled hunters, which wasn't always the case. So taking a look at his music video, we can further strengthen our idea of Redface. Really, the music video has two settings of him in a country bar and him where he's describing himself as Native American, and him, so the supposed native outlaw, um, on a bike with a girl. And since he's describing himself and it's made very evident by this video, we can say that he is performing Redface. Also, something that I felt was ironic was really the only portrayal of a native in this video is the logo on his motorcycle, which portrays a stereotypical looking Indian. So Redface and other stereotypes really cause a harm to society and is something that should be focused on. They create a negative view of Native Americans as they are viewed as savages and primitive, and also an inaccurate cultural image as they are portrayed as a people of the past and not a people of the present, almost getting rid of their culture, which is so valuable to American history, not just then, but also now. And something to note is Burkle and others, psychologists, found that when people were exposed to racial caricatures, it increased Rachel's ideals in those who already held them. So when people are exposed to these stereotypes, it only strengthens and increases their disdain for this race, making it very important that we eradicate them from society. However, it's not just enough to eradicate stereotypes through putting a stop to the production of media containing them and such as things such as Redface. We also need to encourage Native voices in the media and in popular culture. It's from them that this problem must be solved, as they provide a very inside voice and can portray them and their tribal identities how they want to be portrayed and as accurate as they possibly can be. And with many times, if an outsider does it, it can often ends up in Redface or stereotype. So it's very important that we encourage and appreciate Native voices in the media. And thank you. That was my presentation. And thank you.